Hey guys, good to see you.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. I guess we're in our panel right now. How's it feel? Feel good?
Feels
Good
like we're in the
stuff.
pocket.
Good stuff. All right. Well, it's showtime, baby. Let's do this. Hey, I'm Zack Seward. I am from CoinDesk, one of the editors there. I have a really great lineup here. We're going to talk about this crazy moment of blockchain interoperability. It's really happening. We can do the Ron Paul gif and vibe out to that as we get this thing going. So my panel right now is Andre from Yearn. I have Chad from Thorchain. I have Derek from Moonbeam. And I have Hendrik from Jump Trading. This is an all-star cast, and I'm here to facilitate a fun conversation. So I want to talk about interoperability. I think interoperability is kind of like another I word, infrastructure, in that it can be a little drab and a little dull. But I think what we're seeing now is a really exciting moment where these networks are being used in a way that we hadn't previously seen before. I was looking at DeFi Llama, and there's something like $150 billion on the top 5 chains alone. So certainly people are voting with their feet and trying these things out. I guess my initial question, I'll throw this to you, Andre, just to start, and then we'll get it going from there. I'm very curious, like, why this is happening now. Why are we seeing all this activity now? Why are we seeing these big incentive programs be rolled out now? Just curious on the timing of it all.
I mean, truth be told, I think the timing comes down. Well, first of all, hi everyone. Thanks for having me on. The timing is definitely like it feels dumb to say, but it's coincidental. It's like in 2017, there were all of these promises about things we were going to do. We were going to do lending, we were going to do automated market making, we were going to do on-chain trading. And back then, like 9 out of 10 of these things were called scams, but like now it's stuff we use in our everyday. Now, if you go back to like last year or maybe as late as 2018, everyone was talking about interoperability. I mean, the big names we had back then, I think the Interoperability Alliance was like WanChain, Ion. I'm not even sure where those guys are today. But, like at the same time, like that was sort of the development start of what we're seeing today in terms of interoperability. So all of the sort of chains that conceptualized back in 2017, they're all real now. Like it took them 3 to 4 years to build, to roll out, to actually get somewhere. But a lot of them were ready already, a year or 2 years ago, but there wasn't anything on top of that. It needed DeFi to come along to kind of give people something to do on top, because originally you were just sending native transactions, and like, I mean, that's fun for all of 5 seconds, and then you're kind of over it. So then you had this whole DeFi wave that kicked off something to do, a reason to actually interact with these things. And the more we interacted, the more we realized, look, there's actually a little bit too much activity for any one chain to handle this stuff. And it's like filling a cup. Eventually it's going to start overflowing, and it started overflowing into other networks. And I think it was just really a lucky coincidence of teams being ready for their DeFi solutions, and sort of a good coincidence timing with CrossChain also starting to blossom. I don't think it's quite there yet. We're kind of with CrossChain where we were with blockchain in like 2018, 2019 maybe. But I mean, it's advancing obviously at an incredible pace. So I think it's just like a very nice combination petri dish that ended up allowing all of this to happen. And I mean, I'm obviously ecstatic about what is happening. But yeah, like I don't think, like I can't specifically pinpoint like a big bang moment, if I can call it that. It was just a really nice combination of cross-chain blockchains maturing and DeFi, and nowadays NFTs that I've started giving people more and more and more to do, and that's spreading.
Yeah, it just feels like the momentum is really striking. Hendrik, I'm going to toss this to you. From the trading perspective, do you see any sort of catalytic moments in the last 6 months or so that have got us to where we are now?
I can't hear you.
Hendrik, you are muted, my friend. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Andre.
Oh, hold on. Here we go. Now he has to sing a song. That's the rules. That's the rules.
Another 15 seconds. We get to pick this
All right.
up.
Oh, that's true. Okay, we'll be taking requests in the chat, please. All right, Chad, I'm going to toss this to you. Definitely coming to it from a different perspective than what jump trading could offer, but same question to you. Why now? Like, why are we seeing this, just this momentum?
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating. I think kind of zooming out and looking very high level, we first had this idea of like programmable money, right? And which is really cool. It's like lots of really interesting things you can do with that, right? Really fascinating concept. But now we kind of expanded kind of the next step of that, which was like programmable like protocols, like entire protocols that take programmable money and do something really interesting or really creative, or like a new way of generating yield or providing some kind of service or value to the greater crypto space. And I think that the next kind of natural like evolution of this is being able to do that cross-chain, which is something that ThorChain spends a lot of time thinking about, right, as a community. And so being able to take that idea as these programmable protocols and make it so you can interact across chain is even like more fascinating, from at least from my perspective, right? And that's partially because of like the technology quadrant right there, like in 2017, like when DeFi summer first started, like a couple of years ago, and all this kind of stuff started to happen. We didn't have a lot of the technologies that we have now. Like Cosmos didn't really quite exist yet, and Polkadot is still kind of being put out there. We didn't have cryptographic concepts like threshold signatures, for example, and all these things made it feasible or even possible for something like a ThorChain to exist, to make this interoperability not even just within a specific ecosystem, but within many ecosystems, any ecosystem, right? And that's a pretty huge kind of leap forward, at least in my opinion, of like taking this idea and pushing it even further. And there were a lot of reasons for it. And there's timing of the market, there's timing of like the community and culture, there's timing of the technology and the cryptographic needs that are required. All these things kind of just coalesce in a perfect storm of activity to create such a new and amazing and fantastic opportunity for people to get involved with and participate in.
Got it. Hendrik, you have to sing "Smoke on the Water." That was the request in the chat. So if we start hearing those notes, I'll let you continue.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
Oh, awesome.
There it is. All right, so I'm gonna go to you. I mean,
Yep.
I think your perspective on this might be interesting, right? I mean, I guess like, I don't know, maybe the midwit question here is like, is this about sort of like stranded assets that people just want to be able to shift around to different networks as different opportunities pop up? In terms of what's motivating people to kind of vote with their feet and get on these different chains that they hadn't previously been on, what are you seeing on the trading side that is, again, catalyzing this?
Yeah, I think there's various aspects. Now that people actually move to different L1s, just like Andre said, there's now so much usage that people are actually making use of like other chains that provide more capacity in terms of TPS, that provide cheaper fees, that provide other primitives that some chains are missing. I think obviously the interoperability solutions now provide the pipes to bring liquidity there, because I think previously in the blockchain world there were all of these new chains popping up saying like, okay, we can do this now. Suddenly they have a reason to exist because people actually can make use of that capacity, but they're lacking like the underlying like really basic infrastructure that is required. It's like it's cities, but there's no internet connectivity. There's no Oracle solutions there. They're lacking the tokens that people just have on these other chains. And having asset mobility and also data mobility between these chains can level the playing field for these different L1 players, but also L2 players, to enable ecosystems to thrive there. And I think this is where it's not just like assets in the sense of traditional fungible tokens, but also NFTs in this world, where you have marketplaces across different chains and different protocols, different chains that can enable you to do certain things that other chains might not be like just capable of doing. But at the same time, you have chains which hold extremely important data that you might want to utilize on other chains. Like for example, a Uniswap TWAP can be really useful for even a protocol on another chain to be used as a data source for, like for example, their liquidations, just to seed it in. And I think this is where these cross-chain solutions come in to bridge the gap between what is becoming a multi-chain world.
Yeah, Derek, I want to get you on the board, and then I got some more questions. I mean, talk to me about from the Polkadot perspective, right? Polkadot was sort of envisioned as, an interoperability network. It's sort of like a network of base layers, right? A network of L1s. What does this conversation look like in that context?
Yeah, I think to the base question of just like why are we seeing all this activity in bridges, I do think I agree with a lot of my fellow panelists here. It just comes from utilization, and it comes from being in a multi-chain environment. And so necessity is the mother of invention. Like, you have all these chains, you need like the transit paths, you need like the roads that kind of connect them. That's just kind of a matter of practicality. I think that's why we're seeing all of the activity here. Polkadot obviously does have this kind of, I would call it like a different approach to this, where the networking, the kind of cross-chain networking is built into the base protocol itself. That's something that I do think will become is an important thing that will become more important moving forward. I think we're in a time right now where I think like the differences between these different bridges are like kind of difficult to discern for a lot of people, right? I mean, you're kind of have these layered like security and trust assumptions a lot of the times, but it's it always amazes me that people just kind of like more or less blindly go across them and like don't really know, aren't really questioning some of these things. So I think we're kind of in this time now, the analogy is like everyone's building bridges, but maybe not all of them are as sound as like other ones. And so there'll probably be some bridge collapses and who knows what. And then, there might be over time an appreciation for ones that are more soundly built versus others. I think part of that was, part of our initial attraction into Polkadot. I mean, Cosmos has some similar concepts where, kind of, at least in Polkadot, right, the networking is kind of built into the base layer protocol itself. So like, to use that native networking, you're kind of not like layering on additional trust assumptions. Now, that being said, of course, not every chain is a Polkadot like parachain. So, you look at our work, like we have plenty of like bridges kind of trying to connect to like all, the other things in the world, even if we have this like native like networking capability into like the Polkadot ecosystem.
Got it. I like this. I love the image of just, finally taking a leap across the bridge. And I think what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is just some pretty big carrots being dangled on the other side of the bridge to get traders to make that leap. I'm going to throw this one to Andre because it's a term that he coined and I really like: liquidity locusts. I think that concept is the concept of people roving from chain to chain just to get as many perks as possible, which may not be especially sustainable in the long run. So Andre, I just wanted to ask you to unpack that term a little bit and what you're seeing on the horizon in terms of these hordes of locusts descending on new base layers.
Well, I mean, we first saw it, at DeFi when I remember when liquidity incentives just started. I mean, technically SNX coined it, but it became big with Compound. I'd say was the first big one that attracted a lot. And the cycle between Compound to the next, which I think after Compound was actually Yearn, was a decent length of time. It was probably a month and a half or so, and then I think probably from Yearn it was Yam or Sushi, and that was about 2-3 weeks, and like the one after was a week, and the one after was 4 days, and the one after was 1 day, and like we saw those time frames just get shorter and shorter and shorter. And the one thing we always saw is that a certain amount of liquidity is sticky, but it's a small amount. It's like you take a bunch of wet noodles, throw it against a wall. Some of it's going to stick, most of it's going to fall off. And that's what keeps happening with and why I started calling them liquidity locusts, because they swarm in, they eat up all the incentives they can until there's nothing left, and then they move on. And we started seeing it with chains. Polygon was the first, I think, that started the incentives with their Matic token. And I mean, after that, it's been Avalanche, it's been Phantom, it's been it's now such a long list. I don't even remember who are all.
Harmony, Cello, you name it, everybody's doing it.
Everyone's popped up one, but it will, and X percentage will be sticky, and that's fine. So whatever the incentivized TVL is, you can probably expect that 10 to 30% of it is going to remain, because another beauty about these liquidity locusts is also they're incredibly lazy, which is kind of a nice thing. So, if often it's too much effort for them to move to another farm, so then they just stick and stay there. And that's good for most of these chains. But in terms of the question of sustainability, I think it's bad. And that's why I think that, there's been a lot of research in terms of how do you change these liquidity programs. Like I proposed the options liquidity mining, and there's Olympus DAO is also doing a good thing with their bond liquidity mining. So there's a lot of new experimentation coming into the system. But as long as you're just throwing money, you're not buying loyalty. you're buying just opportunists, and they're going to swarm onto the next thing. So I really think we need to strongly start reconsidering these incentive schemes. And it's twofold. Number one, we're seeing that time frequency decrease more and more. I mean, Arbitrum, the first one was Nyan, and I think not even a day later it was Carbon, and like they collapsed and was less than a few hours later, and there was another one that collapsed, and I think they're already on like 4 farms that have collapsed there. And it hasn't even been 48 hours, and like that's liquidity is already trying to leave, and it's like 7 farms later. So it's getting to a point where the real projects aren't doing liquidity mining anymore, and if you see it, it's probably going to be a scam that's going to rug you in some way. And I think that's why the cycles are shortening, and at the same time we're just seeing these forks popping up more and more. But you know what, like I say, X percentage is going to be lazy liquidity, and it's going to remain, and it's going to give that chain usefulness, and in the long run that's probably good enough. But I do strongly advise anyone that's if you're running a Ponzi, go for it. Just print that token as fast and as much as you want. But for the projects that actually want real liquidity, seriously, reinvent the way you're giving it. If you give something for free, you're going to get nothing back.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really interesting issue, and Chad, I'm gonna toss this to you for your perspective. Are these incentive schemes just a reality of the blockchain world, or are we going to see something a bit more refined in the future?
Well, I would hopefully hope for something refined in the future. I mean, I associate ThorChain's economic design to not be, a flash in the pan in terms of its economic model of it, how it generates its yield for any user that wants to contribute to it. But I think there's also just like the human nature you have to fight against. I mean, there's always going to be Ponzi schemes. There's always going to be people who want, especially on something like Ethereum, where you can just launch a smart contract in a weekend and have liquidity mining, and it's like very little effort, very low barrier, and you can just dump something and then gain huge amounts of money and then walk away and sip a Mai Tai on some some beach somewhere, right? But I think that the natural thing that to happen is that a few projects, maybe 6 or so, I'm going to guesstimate, will kind of rise with the rest and be considered blue chips, right? And that's what's going to inspire the real liquidity of of commercial, retail, and even government funds eventually. Governments are going to put huge amounts of money into some random thing that just popped up last weekend. They're going to go into the thing that's been around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, that's proven itself to be resilient, and the economic model actually functions, and it's not just something that's going to burn up in the stratosphere after falling from space, right? After it fell down from the moon or whatever you want to call it. But so it's a natural thing to happen. I think we'll always have these kind of, to use Andre's term, Ponzi schemes that'll pop up. That's been true for more than 100 years of the stock market. It'll be true for the next 100 years of crypto. There's nothing we're going to do about that. But I think there are going to be core protocols, like a handful of them at least, that are going to show to be economically sound in how they're designed. And I hope ThorChain be one of those.
We'll put it on the short list. We'll put it on the short list for consideration. All right. It's at least top 7. All right.
Top 7.
Hendrik, I'm going to toss this to you. It's kind of odd to look ahead and sort of zoom forward, because it still is very early days on this front, but sort of hearing whispers of sort of bridge fatigue and too many networks, too many sweet incentive plans. Do you feel like bridge fatigue is a thing, or is that just gonna normalize in time?
Yeah, I think right now, obviously, everyone's battling for people's attention and liquidity. I'd say attention is probably an even more scarce resource than liquidity is in the current space. So obviously, we'll have a lot of bridges be built between chains that might not actually, where there isn't a real reason for them to be connected, where there's going to be liquidity that's going to be pulled across and that's going to wander back. I think some of these bridges, people have no real incentive to use them except to be locus for a while and participate in these, if we want to call them, Ponzi schemes, because that's what's making the money right now. But I think obviously there's worlds, and I think Derek, this is where the Moonbeam Polkadot world is settled, where a Polkadot communications protocol like XCMP actually connects chains that need to work with each other, because they each build one pillar of a DeFi ecosystem, but there's no one size fits all solution in that ecosystem. Same goes for the Cosmos and IBC world, where these chains coexist, and each of them serves a very specific purpose. May that be being a generic smart contract runtime, a specific lending protocol, or a gateway to the rest of the L1 world. And I think in these spaces in particular, bridges are gonna continue to exist because they are a crucial and integral part of the ecosystem. Then there's other places, obviously, where I think these bridges will need to provide a value, and that value should not just be like being able to connect this one farm. And I think that's largely going to come down to which layer ones can provide a value in the long term. And these are going to be the ones that maintain connection over these bridge networks. For example, with Jump Crypto, where contributors to the wormhole protocol, and there's huge inbound interest for us to connect to various chains. Everyone wants to be connected today. But what does connecting mean? Connecting means a bunch of people will need to run light clients, or the chains themselves will need to verify each other, which in especially the very, very different consensus mechanisms in L1s is largely difficult. And maintaining these bridges is super expensive. So as long as, compared to let's say, for example, like Polkadot or Cosmos world, there's no real reason for assets to flow between these, because one of these chains just ceases to have attractiveness to users in general, then obviously there will be bridge fatigue. These bridges will die down because they're expensive to maintain. But obviously, if there's L1s with strong USPs, strong user bases, and strong use cases, then these bridges will continue to exist and provide extremely important value. ETH is the hub for tokenization. It's I'd say number one use case. And it will continue to be that, at least I personally think that. And it will be attractive for thriving layer ones to connect to it. And I don't think these bridges will die down, or people will get tired of them. They will need to use them. Or maybe players like us, traders, will need to use them to just bring these tokens over and make markets on certain chains. If there's chains with central limit order books, generally ones with markets that need to be made, if not AMMs.
Gotcha. Derek, I want to throw this at you. Are there any interoperability phenomena in the last 6 months that have been particularly surprising to you? What are some of the more surprising developments in interoperability that you've seen from where you sit?
Yeah, I would echo a little bit of some of the thoughts that Hendrik gave here, that the mental model right now seems to be largely around porting, right? So you kind of have these different chains. A lot of them are the ones getting traction tend to be the EVM compatible ones these days, right? So you have these different EVM compatible chains. Teams are kind of taking their protocols and basically just porting the entire protocol over to new chains. And then that's where the bridges, the main use case for the bridges is just asset movement. So that's kind of what's been characterizing the here and now. But I think the bigger opportunity, and this is one of the reasons that us and my team are bullish on Polkadot, is around kind of extending the interoperability use cases to be about more than tokens. So what do I mean by that, right? So what I mean by that is that as an application builder or protocol builder, you might not target one chain as your destination. You might say, you know what, I'm going to build an application that spans multiple chains. It might use services from a few different chains that specialize in different things, right? There might be you already see this today even with NFT applications that might have their compute backed against Ethereum or Polygon, and then you have maybe Arweave is where the metadata is being stored, right? So this is an application that's kind of combining two specialized different chains together to create kind of a whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And so I think that's the thing that I'm kind of most interested in, is kind of because it strikes me as similar to what's happened kind of just even in the Web 2 world when you're building, right? It used to be that you kind of targeted just servers, but then now you have all these specialized different kinds of systems you might find in AWS. So that's kind of interest to me, right? Is how can you have specialized chains where an app would kind of leverage multiple of the services from those chains to kind of it kind of sit on top of those, right? And I think that's a way to scale too, right? Because if you're not trying to force everything onto one chain, you're able to kind of leverage chains that are really good at certain things. And so that's kind of the model we've been pursuing is, and that's kind of where I think that, you need kind of this very rich kind of communication between chains to enable some of these scenarios beyond the immediate asset transfer scenarios that are kind of the ruling the day, the airwaves right now.
Gotcha. I'm going to throw the same question to Andre. Any surprising developments that have kind of been unexpected to you in these last few months?
the interoperability world, in all honesty, we're kind of seeing the fruition / productionization now of the things that were white papers like 2-3 years ago. So nothing. Quite a few like holy shit that actually worked moments, like, you know, where you read the white paper and you're like, damn, is this actually going to be able to work? And then, you know, a few years later it actually works, which is quite awesome. But sort of analog to that, also I want to echo what Derek is saying, you know, is that just token movement is actually pretty straightforward. I mean, that's basically like, I don't know, like a telnet protocol. You know, it's the most basic level of communication you can almost get. You just telnet into the system and you give it a single command and it gives you an echo back or something. One thing that I worry about in terms of the interoperability world is specifically that messaging layer, you know, because it needs to be as robust as TCP/IP. It needs to be a full-blown, agreed upon communication protocol that almost all of these blockchains can work on. And I definitely have a concern in terms of sort of blockchain tribalism that'll kind of stop that. Because chances of any of the major chains, like even agreeing on basic things, is next to impossible, you know, and like actually trying to them all to get to agree to a schema of interoperable communication. That's not a battle I even want to tackle. I'll leave that to guys like Derek. I think they're much better positioned. So I think that's going to be a very, very important battle because we're already seeing sort of communication fragmentation, if I can call it that, where, you know, I mean, even if we just look at an asset layer, you know, even if we just look at BTC, first there was wrapped BTC, then there was REN BTC, then there was PBTC, any BTC. I mean, Curve existed because there were 7 different flavors of BTC that needed to be swapped to each other. Versus if we agreed on a schema, you know, even if it was, we all set IBC is going to be our standard and we all just adopted it, it would be better. Chances of that happening, I don't know, are slim to none. I actually wish I could sort of go back in time and see how the hell everyone managed to agree on TCP. But I think there were a lot less people in the room back then, and there's so many cooks in the kitchen right now that, I think that's going to be the big barrier. Stuff that definitely, there's been a few really amazing cryptographic primitives that definitely opened up my eyes. MPC and 4chan's TSS definitely being 2 of them. Very, very impressive stuff. You know, and like that was like threshold ECDSA research was like things that Goldfeeder and them were still like publishing in 2018, 2019, and by 2020 it's real. I mean, seeing that is absolutely insane. And you know, it's the same kind of stuff we're seeing with zero knowledge proofs. You know, like it was all theoretical a year ago, and like now we're using it for optimistic rollups and ZK syncs and all kinds of cross-chain stuff that's really amazing. Actually, I guess there's been quite a bit. The space moves so bloody fast, you don't even notice.
It really is. It just doesn't let up. Chad, I'm going to throw this over to you. And I was just going
to comment something that Andre said. Like creating a protocol like TCP did for the World Wide Web. You know, back actually CERN created World Wide Web, by the way. But like when they created the World Wide Web back in the day, like that was a much easier. Those are the people in the room that he was referring to. It was actually those guys over at CERN, and like it was a lot easier because the data underneath it, is not like transacting like financial data. Right? It was not that time, and it's data that is much easier, more reliable data. Whereas like in the Bitcoin world, like, or proof of work chain, you have like reorgs, right? So like you can't. You know, that creates a lot of complexity of like how do you have inter-blockchain communication where the thing you just happened just got undone, right? And so like even something like Cosmos's IBC, right, it was specifically designed for proof of stake, and the reason why that's a lot easier to do is because it has instant finality. There's no undoing of any chain, so that becomes a lot simpler to communicate between chain A and chain B if they both have this instant finality, as the Web sort of kind of does. But like with proof of work chains and other things like that, like it creates a lot more complexity. Not to mention you have other chains that are like Solana that are like proof of history, and you have like proof of time and space, and like all these things are very different and very structured very differently. So to create a single like basic protocol that everybody adheres to, at this point that ship has been totally sailed. There's almost no way we're going to unwind. You're not going to convince the Bitcoin community to like adopt some new like inter blockchain communication because like half of them are Bitcoin maxis to begin with. Like you're not even convince them that like another asset's worth money than Bitcoin, let alone to adopt an entire protocol. That ship has been sailed, you know, a long time ago, and we're not going to be able to get it back. I wish we could, but we're not going to be able to get it back. And that's partially like ThorChain's approach is like, all right, we need to create you know, an open standard way of actually creating pathways from these isolated islands of Bitcoin and Ethereum and Polkadot and whatever else in the world, and have it be able to adhere to and be able to understand the complexities and the risks and all these things of the reorgs and all the different attack methods of like every chain in the world. That's a really difficult problem to solve, like an extremely difficult one to solve, and something that we as a community have taken on. But that's the only way to solve that problem, at least from my perspective at this time.
Are there any other like building blocks that you think are needed to continue the early momentum that we're seeing?
To have like a standard protocol between chains?
Well, even beyond that, you know, maybe there are other ingredients
that?
here, yeah, that like, you know, are worth discussing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to get to a place where like, for example, like you drive a car, right? You don't need to understand what a spark plug is, how pistons function, like all these things. You just need to know how to understand the wheel and the pedals in front of you. And right now, when you drive a car in crypto, you need to understand the engine underneath it, right? And that gives a significant amount of complexity that makes it very difficult for even technically, you know, intelligent individuals to like kind of comprehend, right? There's a significant amount of resistance against like the general population. And so we were talking before about like blockchain fatigue and all these things that like sometimes when you look at bridge fatigue, you look at a particular bridge, you have to understand so many elements underneath it that it becomes really complex and too hard for like most Americans to, or most world participants to actually understand. And you're like, what am I exposing myself to? Because most bridges give you like a wrapped asset or a pegged asset, which means you're taking on the risk of additional things just by holding the asset on the other side, right? The only way to solve this problem in a practical and reasonable way that is economically secure is to get rid of the wrapped assets, get rid of the peg assets. You don't even actually need them from a first principles perspective. The only viable way is like, I'm swapping Bitcoin to Ethereum and I get my tokens on both sides. Layer one to layer one, and I'm done, settled. That's it. I don't need to like understand anything else. I don't know. I have to figure out how do I get back later. Like all those things are just kind of abstracted away because you're not exposing yourself to that risk post the transaction that you made. And so once you get to that place where it doesn't really matter what the bridge is, because as soon as you actually go across it, you're done with it, then it becomes a lot more simple, right? Then you don't have this bridge fatigue stuff because who cares if it's ThorChain or this chain or that chain or whatever. It's providing like an actual legitimate way to move assets from chain A to chain B in a completest way, and not just like have this overarching kind of concern long term about, okay, what's going to happen with WBTC when the government comes after Bitcoin or something like this, like whatever the case may be. That's the only like reasonable way that I've been able to like think about it.
That's really interesting. I think it just does speak. Well, actually, first of all, Andre, I saw you came off mute. Did you want to say something?
So I agree with Chad's sentiment 100%. But I've always, when it comes to cross-chain stuff, there's always a little bit of a chicken egg problem, because now in Ethereum, you want something like wrapped BTC because you want to lend it out in Aave or Compound or whatever, and you want to earn yield on that. You can't do anything with BTC on the Bitcoin network. Apologies, BTC maxis, you can't. So the problem with swapping layer native, let's rather say native assets, you know, is you need wrapped BTC to exist on Ethereum before you can swap native BTC to wrapped BTC if you're talking about native assets. So, you know, it's fantastic when you're doing BTC to ETH to Sol to, I don't know, whatever. But when you have that asset on top of problem, you know, I'm curious your thoughts around that.
Oh, well, I mean, I would say that we've gotten ourselves into a place where we've kind of pigeonholed ourselves in the thinking that if you want to use Bitcoin in a DeFi space, you have to put it to like a DeFi protocol like Ethereum. You actually don't. There's no actual reasoning from a first principles perspective of why that's actually a requirement. It's not, right? You can take Bitcoin, right, put it into the ThorChain network and earn yield and participate in DeFi without ever holding a wrapped asset like, WBTC or anything that's similar to it. You can actually participate and get loans. You can get yield swaps, all that stuff actually on layer 1 Bitcoin if you want to. And ThorChain is actually an example of actually how you can legitimately actually accomplish that goal.
Good questions all around. It's nice when the conversation flows like that. Andre, I saw you unmuted. Again.
like the only comment I have there again is and correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption then there is that all of those, let's call them dApps, need to exist on ThorChain. So I mean that means that you guys need to be building all of that and taking responsibility for that and creating all of that. Like maybe I don't want to lend, or I don't want to. Maybe I want to put my BTC in a NFT and sell the NFT. Like now you guys first have to build the NFTs, and you have to build the OpenSea, and you have to get everything on top there. So there's a little bit there is some ease in just accepting things jumping onto other networks, and then just let people do whatever the hell they want.
Right, but you can make that argument, and ThorChain is building all sorts of features to do all sorts of lending protocols and like all sorts of yield bearing synthetics and all sorts of stuff that's really interesting. But we as a community do not have to be the ones that do everything, right? We're just one implementation of a protocol design that anybody else in the world can create. Like anybody else can take the ThorChain code, fork it, and build something else that does something else, right? It doesn't have to be me specifically or anybody in the ThorChain community. It can literally be anybody. And our code is MIT licensed, so you're welcome to fork it, take it, build something else, do something wonderful, awesome. It doesn't have to be us. We're just showing a single model of how it can be done, but we are not the only ones who can do it. We're just the only ones that are doing it now, unfortunately. But eventually that'll change. I think that'll happen over the next 6 months. There's other things that are coming down the pipeline in 6 to 12 months that are going to be something similar conceptually to what ThorChain does. But we're the only player in the market that I can think of off the top of my head at this current moment that actually does layer 1 trades and all this kind of stuff. But that won't sustain for a long period of time. That'll change. And you'll be able to earn yield on your Bitcoin through ThorChain, but also Chain B, Chain C, and Chain D. And people who, will see ThorChain success and take from it, as people did with Bitcoin. People took Bitcoin success, they modeled new ideas and concepts and made some modifications and changes that did something different, something to their opinion valuable. And that same thing will happen here. People will take our design and then change it a little bit here and then add some functionality or add some, some feature of functionality. Who knows? I'll be excited to see what people come up with.
I mean, stepping in there for a second, maybe on the CrossChain world and the world of wrapped assets, I think in the very, very long term, as all of the ecosystems have matured a lot, I totally agree with the sense that swapping between chains makes a lot of sense. No additional trust assumptions in the assets you hold. Even in the IBC world, you need to have some trust assumptions in various ways that have become very complex to understand over time. But in the current world, where there's layer 1 summer, where this whole thing is playing out and new ecosystems are being started, they need a USDC, they need access to this liquidity, to this exciting liquidity also that users are looking for. And I think they are extremely important to bootstrap the whole thing. And then obviously I think if I think about DeFi and making it accessible and scaling to the next billion users as usual people would be writing, then I imagine the user that's currently on Binance that has a centralized exchange account, that's trading into certain tokens and wants to participate in DeFi. Maybe they can't afford participating in DeFi and Ethereum, but they want to hold comp. They also probably want to participate in governance. And I think in this world, either there come really, really good wallets that understand CrossChain, that can speak all of these protocols, which in the current world I'd say is it's almost impossible, because every week there's a new chain with 1 billion in TVL that you want to be on, that you want to bridge governance with. But as this matures, either there comes this wallet that can really seamlessly translate between all of them and utilize something like ThorChain in the background to do the translation, to utilize other bridges in the background to do the translation, use Wormhole for messaging, use various different protocols to achieve these things. Either this happens, or there comes this like one chain that can do it all. But let's see whether that does. Like I'd be happy if there were fewer chains, fewer different assumptions to understand, but who knows where this is gonna go.
All right, well, we got about 5 minutes left, so we're going to do the where is this going to go portion of the conversation. And I'm going to put Derek on the spot. Derek, you got to get out your telescope. You got to look 6 to 12 months down the pipeline. What are we going to see in interoperability by that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's even just existing trends today continuing. So, I mean, I see that, the Ethereum tech stack is just dominant, right? And I think people have underestimated, there's a lot of L1s that are making, different tech stacks, but in the end, there's just I think people vastly underestimate what it takes to build good tooling that developers want to use. So I continue to see that as being kind of a dominant trend. I continue seeing a permanently and increasing multi-chain, kind of environment. I continue seeing a lot of different ideas coming to market in terms of bridging, and then I think the market will kind of just tell us which ones are sounder versus less sound. There's going to be probably some painful lessons in the next 6 to 12 months is what I'm anticipating. I mean, we've already seen some hints of some, but I think that it usually takes a building collapse before people agree that having building inspections and inspectors and paying for all that is worth doing. So there's probably something like that coming our way. But yeah, I just kind of those are kind of some of the trends that I would point to.
I wonder which building is going to collapse. That's a follow-up question, but for another day. Chad, I'm going to ask you 6 to 12 months. I like sort of the image of the steering wheel, and sort of riffing on Hendrik. I think maybe a good wallet could be that steering wheel. Do you have any projections for what the 6 to 12 month timeline is for getting people to more easily participate across all these networks?
Well, yeah. Even if the example of the wallet, to have a cross-chain wallet that is free and open source, I don't think actually really even exists. With the exception of Thorchain has Exchange.js, which is a free library that anybody can use that gives you universal kind of pathways that use all sorts of different chains, and that's something that we as a community decided just to build and to give out to the world for free. Anybody can use it as they see fit, whatever you want to use it for. The fact that we don't have that is just what the hell? This whole industry was built on the idea of open source technology, and we haven't done that yet. It's what? It doesn't make any sense. But we need to get to a place where we have a situation now where in order to use individual assets or blockchains, you have to use different browsers, right? Effectively, I got to use Chrome to go to YouTube, and I got to use IE Internet Explorer to go to Facebook, and I got to use this one. That is just what are we doing here? That just makes my brain kind of explode. And so hopefully over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll see significant motions to kind of alleviate and just have standard protocols that any browser can kind of interact with to be able to give you access to all sorts of different DeFi or NFTs or whatever the thing is of the day, to make it simple and standard in across chains. Not so much transactions across chains that we were talking about before, but just access to protocols that are cross chain. That's more feasible and technologically possible to happen, which myself and including many other people in the industry are actually working hard to get to that place.
Gotcha. Andre, I'm going to put you on the spot for 2022 predictions. What are we going to see in interoperability or even DeFi more generally?
I think 6 months actually passes in the blink of an eye. I'll rather warrant a 1 to 2 year guess here. I mean, sort of next evolution, we saw tokens bridging. I think next will be NFTs, which is really a little bit more interesting. That'll lead to sort of more any kind of arbitrary call. Probably, it'll be EVM stack for now. So ABI, just encoded payloads that get sent across to a contract that gets executed. That will at least start seeing the beginning of cross-chain contract communication. That's sort of on the dApp developer side. Hopefully on the web app side, we'll see more meta transactions. Would be good, less direct execution, more just signing a permit payload and giving that to a backend server that processes it. A little bit more centralized, but better UX. And ideally, websites will become more RPC aware via some Web3 tech stack. So, less switching wallets, less switching networks, more the UI taking care of that for the user. I think if we see more meta transactions and we see more sort of native RPC API awareness, that's better on the user side. And when we start seeing sort of ABI cross-chain calls, that's better on the contract side. And I mean, even those two things, it sounds like straightforward to do, but that in themselves is like more than 6 months of work.
All right, guys, that was a fun conversation. Andre, Chad, Derek, Hendrik, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. Fans watching this, thanks for watching it. I'm going to wrap it here, toss the keys back to the organizers, and we are going to fade away back into the internet. So thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Zack Seward from CoinDesk. It's been fun, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Zack. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.